City University Television presents the American Theater Wing Seminars. Working in the Theater. This seminar, Performance.
A warm welcome to the American Theater Wing's Working in the Theater Seminars, now in their 29th year, coming to you from the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. Performers are brought together by the American Theater Wing to these seminars, and with them we hope to provide a clear picture of what it's like to work in the theater. Today's seminar is with leading performers, the performers that are on Broadway right now. We can hope to learn not only about their preparation for a career in the theater, but also about the drive, passion, and the temperament needed to survive for the theater. I'm Isabel Stevenson. I'm chairman of the board of the American Theater Wing, and I'd like to right now introduce our moderator for the seminar, Pia Lindstrom. Pia, who is not only a board member of television, but also
Thank you, Isabel. Well, we have people here with temperament, that's for sure. This is the performance segment of the American Theater Wing Seminar. And first, I'll introduce Valerie Harper, Kate Burton, Robert Sean Leonard, and Christine Ebersole. All of you are in some ways creating parts right now on Broadway that have to do with humor. Even you, Kate Burton, because you're in Hedda Gabler, that play that hardly one thinks of as being funny, an Ibsen play, and yet you've managed to find humor in it. How does an actor go about finding humor?
The biggest thing about our Hedda Gabler is that it's a new translation / adaptation, more translation really, by John Robin Bates, wonderful playwright. In his own right, he wrote a terrific play last year called 10 Unknowns. And, you know, he created this wonderful version of this phenomenal, brilliant, seminal play. And he happens to be quite a wordsmith when it comes to humor, but Hedda Gabler I've always found to be a woman who's, you know, so many things, exasperating, wonderful, terrifying. You could think of 100 adjectives. But her humor for me was the key to my playing of the character.
So the humor came from the words.
The humor was there. I mean, the humor was there in John Robin Bates's, who's called Robbie, so it's just too difficult to say three names. Robbie Bates's version of the play. Because I also had this hilarious director, Nicholas Martin, who himself is quite a humorist. Between the three of us, we managed to get every joke out of the play. And I'm not saying that it's certainly not a funny play, but what makes it very alive for me and playing her every night is to find that wit that she has very intrinsically. And what's wonderful about it is in terms of the collaboration with the audience, which every play and musical really is, that sort of window into Hedda Gabler through her humor is what allows the audience in every night, I think, from the beginning of the show. And it makes it a much more accessible play than it has been in times past, although it's always been an incredible play.
Robert, you're usually associated in my mind with very serious work, and yet, you know, serious, heavy, complex dramas like Invention of Love and so on. And now you're a song and dance man in The Music Man. How did you find the humor in yourself to do that?
I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've always found that sort of the less talented an actor is, the less funny they are, I find. And the less intelligent they are, the less funny they are. I've never said, no one's ever really made me laugh on stage unless they were very, very good at what they do and very smart. So That said, my performance is abysmally unfunny, of course, in Music Man. I think that it's when you surprise the audience, the only way you can make an audience laugh, I think, is if you can surprise them. So if you're thinking ahead of them and you're making choices that surprise them, that seems to be, especially I'm doing the Music Man right now, and it's very hard because it's a play that a lot of people know very well. So I find the laughs that we get together as a company are usually things that are unexpected, turns that characters make and realizations they have and ways that they express that. And that means nothing. I don't know. I have no idea.
You have no idea where you find
I'm
this?
just talking. I have no idea. I try
Acting
to
is a
be
mystery,
funny.
is that it? You're telling us
Funny
we
line
can't
readings.
learn? We want to learn something. Christine, you're in a fantastic, musical, 42nd Street, that is so joyful. Tell me a little bit about how you experience finding humor on stage.
Well, that's a very good question, Pia. When you were asking all these people, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to say about what makes something funny? Because I really don't know. I mean, I think for me, a lot of it has to do with music and rhythm. I think that's what makes humor. It's like ba-dum-bum, it's that kind of a thing,
It's timing.
But it's music and rhythm, Because other than that, I really don't know. It's so hard to, because sometimes I'll do things that people will laugh and I go, why is that funny? And I honestly don't know why. And I think also, too, part of it must come out of character and sort of the needs of what the character has. And not necessarily play them to say, oh, this is going to get a laugh, or this will be funny, but sort of out of what the actual need of the character is, and that it will just be funny because of the heightened, desperation or whatever the thing is that the character is going through.
You've had so many years, Valerie Harper, playing on television, humorous episodes, and now you're on stage in The Allergist's Wife, The Tale of the Allergist's Wife.
And last time I was here, it was because of death-defying acts, and I started in musical comedy. So all my career, it's been...
Is it timing? Is it having an ear for how to say the word?
Yes, and I think it has a great deal to do with recognition. The audience's recognition of the truth. And that's funny, And it's... In the Tale of the Allergist's Wife, it's a hysterical material. So young people out there, pick a funny playwright. Work with someone who's good. I was blessed to... I wasn't raised in comedy, really. No, not really. I mean, I studied here in New York City. And I wanted to touch on something that John said about people. There are people with a sense of humor and not, Now, the knots can sometimes be funny out of their very stoicness. That can be funny. But it really helps you, young people, to develop your sense of humor. And I never thought I was funny, but I always loved to laugh. I really did. So the first thing that people knew me for, I was doing comedy 10 years before Rhoda, but those were wonderful writers. So there's a wonderful old adage, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. Unless you're doing improv, which I also did. And Second City was a great way to learn comedy. But it has to do with telling the truth. And people say, oh, what timing, or that double take. And that, if you're doing it rhythmically, or you're going, oh, look once and twice, that's not it. But if I really would look at her scarf and then look again, if I really do it, if you're telling the truth, it will be funny, I feel. And the thing about rhythm that Christine said is so true, because when I worked with Neil Simon, I remember asking him about a line. He said, could I say this? And he'd say, okay, say it the way it's written. And he turned around. He turned his back to me. And I thought, and she said, no, say it. I don't want to see you. So I said it. He said, okay, now say it the way you want to do it. He said, yeah, your way's better. Or he'll say, no, do it as written. But it was about rhythm and music and the way the words landed. You would get the laugh or not. Yeah.
I think it was Jimmy Cagney who said something about acting. You should just find your mark, look the other fellow in the eye, and tell the truth. How important is the truth in acting?
Well, don't ask Kate.
What does he mean?
Good time.
We've known each other a
Long time.
It's everything. It's everything. It's everything. That's
It's
it.
everything.
Tell
The
the
truth.
truth
That's
is,
it.
yeah. If you're, I mean, you have to, I don't know. I mean, you see bad actors tell the truth and it doesn't work. You have to be a good actor, and you have to tell the truth. And I guess,
That's
right?
simple.
That's simple. Yeah.
And if you don't
That's comedy.
I mean,
Comedy comes out
I
of that.
constantly see actors say something, and I just think, okay, you're either acting cool or you're acting like Denzel Washington, or I don't know what you're not. I don't really believe what you're saying, and that's always the bottom line for me.
So it's how to become believable. Christine, how do you
Well, I
become
think-
believable?
I don't know. I think so much of it is just, you either you have it or you don't. You know what I mean? It's such an indescribable thing, isn't it? But there was
can't learn
something
it.
really important that I was going to say, and I've totally forgotten.
Okay. Well, let's go. Is it a craft? Can you learn any of these things? Is acting a
actually
craft?
think-
Yeah,
As
you
I-
can learn something, but
Yeah.
I think that just innately you just sort of have it. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
It's not that big of a deal, but it was about also being able to laugh at yourself. I think that's a important thing. You know, I always like a good joke at my own expense, but it's being able to sort of understand your own foibles in a circumstance. I think that you can see what's funny. That you don't take yourself so seriously. I mean, you take your work seriously, but you don't take yourself seriously.
That's true.
Is it a
Willing
craft?
to be a fool.
Can you learn this? Can you go to a school and learn this?
You know, it's very odd. My experience, I had sort of the classical training thing. I went to college for 4 years and didn't decide to become an actress until my senior year of college. Went to drama school for 3 years at Yale. And getting back to what Valerie was saying, I mean, I did not play a comic role until I was in my second year at Yale. And I had never played a comic role. I had always played these tragic heroines. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm Juliet, I'm Desdemona, it's endless. You know, it's all Shakespeare all the time. And, but not funny. And I remember getting my first laugh. And it was truly, I was doing this wonderful playwright, Keith Radine, who went to Yale, wrote this Viking revenge tragedy called Fjords of Blood. And actually,
That's comedy.
it was comedy. Fjords of Blood.
Fjords of blood.
And I was the daughter, and my mother was played by my best friend, Jane Kasmarek, who's on Malcolm in the Middle. And she was my mom, the queen, and I was the little dippy princess. And I remember getting my first laugh. And you know, we all say about Yale that we learned that we had a cabaret space at Yale, which was late night shows, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And everybody who went there said that that's where they learned everything that helped them in terms of the real world. Because you go to class and you do your scenes and it's all very delightful. But then about dealing with the audience. And in terms of craft, I have to say that I definitely improved over the time I was in school. But, you know, I know from working with young actors at the Williamstown Theatre Festival, you see it. It's there. There are certain kids from between the ages of 16 and 25, who are in the apprentice program and who are non-equity actors, who you just see that they have it, whatever it is. And then there are others who might not have it quite yet, and they'll develop into it. But it is interesting, and I do think that you can get better. I do think that with really great acting teachers and working and performing, you can improve. But there are some kids who are just, they've got it from the word go.
Seems like there's so many acting coaches now. There used to be schools. Now there's. Have you run into this? You're laughing. Yes. Why is this something every actor needs to have? Is an acting coach?
You mean
these days?
one on like
Yes,
private?
it seems to be private or small groups. It's become a kind of. Hasn't it become a kind of?
Yeah, I think
Style?
Montgomery Clift started it, and
Okay.
it really went on from there. Oh, I don't know.
But he
Can
told
they
the
help?
truth.
I don't know.
Can
I
I-
Yeah,
think
he
in
did.
Los Angeles, when I lived in Los Angeles, it was very popular because really there's nothing to do there. So
It's true.
not to offend
This
anybody,
may
but,
be
you know,
shown in L.A.
really, what else do you do? You just go. You have to go to acting class to feel that you're connected, to feel a part of a community. Because it's not like in New York. You can feel a sense of community, a sense of theatrical community, even when you're not working. Out there, forget about it. No way. Even when you are
about the
working.
script?
But yeah, you just got to go to class out there. But I
What
didn't- I
about
never-
the script?
Yes.
For young people coming into the theater and do not know all the things that we said, and they're given a script, it has to be funny or it's not funny. How do they react to that? How do they learn
When you get a script, you get Invention of Love. That would be complicated to read. Or Arcadia, these...
Tom Stoppard's a whole other...
Yes. Well, you specialize in this, don't you?
You specialist in script reading.
Well, when you get this,
For my years of
how do you analyze a script?
I don't know. I think you find the character. You have to find what... I mean, it's this. It's, you know, Uta Hagen wrote about it. It's every actor will tell you. Who are you? What do you want from? You know, I remember reading when I was a kid, Uta Hagen saying, you know, you have to have a very specific reason behind every line. I remember thinking, God, that was crazy, because I sort of generally know what I want in this scene, but I don't know why I say every line. And now I realize, as I get older, it's true.
Yes.
The only way a performance will be brilliant is if you know exactly, specifically why you're saying every line and why you do everything you do on stage, everything. That's what the script. You find that in the script.
Do you remember the first time you looked at a script? The first time you worked?
Because I looked at a script sort of as an actor.
Yeah.
Well, that would be Peter Pan in 4th grade. So.
Let's go beyond that.
And you know, his motivations are pretty clear in that. Avoid Captain Hook, fly, and have fun, I think, are the sort of main objectives.
Which is a good way to start.
Yeah,
not bad.
Richard III's annoyed. He wants to be king.
That's good.
I don't really recall. I remember when I was started as a kid, I didn't know how to act when I was acting in New York. I started at about 14, and I didn't know how to act yet, so note sessions were a nightmare for me. But, so I don't remember. That's something.
What did you do then?
I did a play called Sally's Gone, She Left Her Name with Cynthia Nixon at the Perry Street Theater.
Sometimes when people are acting, they're either emoting or they're doing something. When you're in Hedda Gabler, you're emoting and
Always
throwing the
emoting.
furniture around.
I'm throwing things around.
I mean, whose idea was that?
I don't know. The odd thing about Hedda Gabler, we've just started performing. We're in our 5th week now, and on Broadway, and we had done it in 3 other theaters beforehand. In a very, very small theater, the Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor was our very first theater, and that's a 200-seat house with a thrust stage, not proscenium. And I cannot remember. There's a lot of things that I do in the show that are really very strange, actually. And I'm trying to remember how we came up with these things. I think, when did we do that? Did we have a conversation about it? Did it just happen? And I think, actually, it goes back to the whole collaborative aspect. It was such a collaboration between myself and Nikki Martin that things happened where we didn't even really talk about it. It just sort of flowed. And there are very strange things that happen like that in plays. And, you know, you're talking about knowing exactly what you're saying at every line. And that's basically true. But I also have to say that when you're playing a part the size of Hedda Gabler, a part of me is just staying as free and unfettered when I kind of arrive on stage. It's really just about showing up. I mean, I show up, and I have my very first line in the play has an attitude towards it that I was very afraid of for a long time. I say, "Good morning, Miss Tesman, visiting us so early. That's so very kind of you." Well, that's a very straightforward line. But my dear friend Richard Easton, I had been totally avoiding taking kind of an attitude about it, and he said, "Oh no, you have to go for the attitude in that line because that sets it up." And it's absolutely true. I mean, I truly credit him with helping me with my first line in the play.
She doesn't really want to see Miss
She doesn't want to see Miss Tesman.
So it has
and
to
so I
have
say
a-
it now with like, I'm saying it, I'm sending 5 signals as I come in. And it sets it up right every night. And it's literally then I just have to follow the path. And I'm amazed at what a collaboration, obviously with Nikki, but also with the audience every night. We become partners. And because I'm in the whole play virtually, it's like, okay, are you going to go on this journey with me? And they pretty much do. Last night was a little touch and go, but most nights are good.
Valerie, you have an audience now, but you've played without audiences, as you know, in television studios. Do you feel a collaboration?
Not too much. Rhoda and Mary
all had
and
audiences.
Valerie and The 5 series I've done have always had an audience. That's what's great about the 3-camera system. I worked with Christina.
We did a show together.
We did.
Did you? What did you do?
It later became the Hogan family, but it was Valerie at the time.
I was
Yeah.
the first neighbor.
You sure were, and a wonderful one, and the one I wanted to keep, and that's why I left.
Thank you.
No, but what I'm saying is
Yes.
that what you had just said about how do you find the humor, how do you approach a script? Well, again, in acting class, as Kate said, she was trained, and John mentioned, and I know it's true for Christine, you learn how to approach the written material.
How?
And Well,
How do you learn?
Mary Tarside told me back in the 50s, read it right straight through and just read it. Just read it, to just feel it. Don't start saying, oh, I'm going to do this or that, because then your mind is engaged. Then you read it again, and you try to, pick up clues, what the other characters say about you, and clues that you see, and impulses. You listen to impulses that you get. So that's the way I would approach reading a script. I always read anything as a fan first. Just, oh, look, a script. And then if it's terrible, you know. But I almost try to always finish it, and that's tough. Sometimes.
There's so many
but
bad
if
scripts.
it's wonderful or good or possible, and then you kind of can apply. It's not that you want to make it funny, muscle it into position, but just allow for the unexpected. And the same thing is true on auditioning. Right now you guys are learning, and that's who we're talking to, but I was in a cold reading class, and that was it, that you just pick something to play. Pick something. Don't just be there reading the line, and that's on what John was talking about. Have an idea of what you could do. Give it a turn. As they say, put some English on the ball. But that's for a cold reading. That's getting the job. That's very different than doing the work. That's called dazzling people when you're one of 300. So that's another story. Right now we're talking about building a character, and what Kate was talking about, that she could say that opening line many, many ways. And there isn't one right way, but there's one that gives her a hell of an advantage on Hedda and for the audience. So pick the most nurturing to what it is you want to do. I don't know if that's what you were talking about.
Partly so.
Yeah, well, everybody has to find their own way to work, too. There's that.
Robert,
Great thing about acting is it's working alone together. And I think the together is the capital letters, because my performance is always over there. It's my listening and what's going on with her, and if she does the line slightly differently, go with that. Happens every night at Allergist Wife. We really do. But you stay within the structure of the script, of course, but you have a lot of freedom to be creative. That's wonderful about the theater. It's not a frozen form, as is film or TV. Forgive me. They're all kind of, children of the theater. In fact, religion is. Theater was before religion. Somebody was dressed up like the sun god, right? And somebody was the rain to try to figure out these elements. That was way back in the cave days. So theater is profound, and we're part of it. And we are all, if we're interested in it. So it's a great endeavor. Anyway, I didn't mean to make a lecture. But
Sorry, Robert, Valerie just mentioned that a teacher who'd influenced her. Is there somebody who influenced you in your life, or a mentor or a coach or somebody that taught you?
No, I can't say there was. There have been a long line of... I started so young. I was very lucky that I started so young that by the time people like Kate came to the city from colleges, I'd already been working. There's always that, you see the sort of influx of the people who studied in college. And by the time I was 22, people like Cynthia Nixon and Jane Krakowski and, people I kind of grew up with in New York had already been around. And when you're 14 and an actor in theater, there are a lot of 14-year-olds doing commercials and television and things and soaps and stuff, but there are very few doing theater. Because why would they?
Well, why did
you? Don't make any money, and it's ridiculous
How
hours.
did you get there?
I don't know. I don't know. Crazy.
Stage mother? Stage
No,
fathers?
I was involved in a summer stock company in my hometown, a non-equity summer stock company, and someone saw me. I don't think I ever really. I was always a little embarrassed to be on stage because I started with the crew. I helped out with the crew. I was backstage, and they started putting me on stage, and I think I was embarrassed to be on stage. And I think what I did was I was playing the Artful Dodger in Oliver very quickly. I came on and I just said my lines as fast as I could. I was sort of embarrassed at looking at the stage. I never looked up. And I think people kind of mistook it for some kind of, natural. They thought I was talented and natural, and because everyone. I mean, this was like a summer soccer. People were like so performy, and I was kind of just embarrassed.
So you're sort of on-the-job training is how you got.
I had a point to this. Remarkably, I learned by doing plays. People like Austin Pendleton, people like Nicholas Martin, Dick Latessa, Swoosie Kurtz, George Grizzard, Stockford Channing, Cynthia Nixon. I've been very lucky working with extremely good actors, and it's like playing tennis. When you're with someone who plays a little bit better than you or much better than you, which is usually the case with me, you can't help but get better because you have to. Because there's no game if you don't. So.
Did somebody influence you, Christine?
I think my parents did. My parents influenced me in sort of a way that was not so direct, but later, in retrospect, I think. When I showed interest in the theater when I was 18, I think that's when I went to college, and I was going to originally be, first I was going to be a psychologist, but then I flunked psychology, so that wasn't going to work. And then there was something else, I'm sure. But I thought I'll go into theater, because I was trying to choose a major, and I said, I told my mother I didn't know what to choose. She goes, get into music, get into theater.
I was going to say, with your voice,
they
always sang, didn't you, all your life?
Yes. I actually have a tape of my father sent to me from when I was 3 years old, singing Jingle Bells. Oh, that's so sweet. And it was really one of those Edward R. Murrow things, what you're hearing is Mom on the piano. Pop is about to join them, bells, right? And my mother's like at the piano, let Christy sing the chorus, just Christy. You ready, Christy? Sing! So I sang Jingle Bells, and it was completely on pitch at 3 years old.
That's
This is not me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we're all born with these gifts that were given at birth. We didn't make them up, and so I guess our job is to just sort of bring them forward. But that's actually what happened. My parents were very encouraging of me. They didn't say, "Oh, honey, get a secretary job and do something you can
That's great.
fall back on." Unfortunately, now I have no other skills. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, that's a good time to take a break. On that note, we'll take a short break while we think of what else we can do and say. And then we will continue with the performance section of the American Theatre Wing's seminars in the theater. Okay, we're doing very well.
This is CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
Welcome back to the American Theatre Wing seminar on working in the theater. Before we turn to our discussion, I would like to emphasize that even though our annual Tony Awards for Excellence in Theater are the most visible of our activities, they are only a small part of the work we do for the community. As a long-established charity, we serve both theater and the community with our year-round programs. The Wing works to develop new audiences for the theater and for a broadening of young minds. We bring the magic of theater to those who otherwise not go and not know its power. Programs for students include Introduction to Broadway, which in its 10-year history has enabled almost 100,000 young students to visit a Broadway show, many for the first time. The Wing also introduces young people to theater by bringing professionals into schools for workshops as a part of our Theater in School program. Additionally, with our hospital program, dating back to World War II, when the Wing created the legendary stage door canteens, we continue to entertain patients in hospitals, nursing homes, aid centers, and child care facilities in the New York area. With volunteer talent from Broadway, off-Broadway, and the cabaret world, we bring live entertainment, hope, and joy to those who are not able to get out and attend theater. Our grants and scholarship program provides essential funding where it is so needed today to help launch new productions in the not-for-profit world. We take pride in the work we do and remain so grateful to our members and everyone whose contributions make the American Theater Wing possible. Our work strengthens the community between the theater and the community, and we are proud to be a part of that great effort. And now I'd like to return to our moderator, Pia Lindstrom.
Thank you, Isabel. Joining us now is Peter Gallagher. Just flew in.
From 47th Street.
From 47th Street. He's rehearsing in a play that is one of the funniest things I've ever saw when it first came out, Noises Off. How's it going?
Well, so far, so good. We had our second preview last night. It was a packed house, and they laugh.
We were talking, before you got here, on humor, how you find humor.
Well, we haven't found any in Noises Off.
You're in trouble.
We're looking at it's Noises Off the dark side. The thing about, the one thing I hear a lot about Noises Off, people say, it's written by Michael Frayn, who's one of the great living playwrights of the English language. And he doesn't usually write comedies. He's written Benefactors, Copenhagen, or Hagen, depending on your east side or west side. And Noises Off. And people say, how could the guy that wrote Copenhagen, Hagen, or Benefactors write Noises Off? And the fact is, he's the only one that could have written Noises Off. Because for my money, what makes something funny is when it's very well observed and it's true, and it gives the audience an opportunity to recognize themselves and take delight in other people's catastrophes, basically. Because you know, it's when everybody else is having a miserable time and you're not. It's really. But the thing about Frayn is that the thing that sets it apart is that he loves the theater, and his love for the theater is what beats and through this play. And his powers as a playwright of observation come into really good play here because it's so well observed. Everything that we say in the play, as characters in the play, are things that we've said as actors. It's a play within a play. It's a show about a company of I play the director, a company of actors putting together an English sex farce called Nothing On. The first act is the dress rehearsal. Next act is looking at the show backstage after it's been running, and the last act is from the stage at the end of the tour when no one can stand each other and it's all falling apart. And for me, what makes it work is if we had to do Nothing On 8 times a week, you'd go crazy. But since we do Noises Off 8 times a week, and it's steeped in reality, and you can feel the author's love for the theater and not his condescension. It provides enormous opportunities for surprising moments that the audience so far find delightful. So it's a marvelous, little opportunity for community.
But it's very hard to play farce and that shutting the doors and the appearing quickly and going back. It takes a lot of special skill and timing, doesn't it? It's not something any actor could do.
Well, we're not very good at it.
What are the skills that a good actor would need to do that?
Well, if this was a really excellent production,
what would that actor need?
I'm really kidding, first of all. I can't believe I just said that.
It's really great. I saw it.
Kate saw it.
I did. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Kate. Now
So what as an actor? What is an
back
actor?
to the theater.
Let's try to keep this on track, guys.
Okay, sorry. Feel like I'm back in school.
As an actor, what qualities do you need
For what?
to play farce?
Well, I don't draw much of a line between comedy or drama at all. It's all the same. You got to understand exactly what it is you're expressing at any given moment. You got to listen, and you got to listen. And you got to try not to. I mean, we've shed blood generally every night in this show because it is true. Those slamming doors are actually steel doors. They're welded steel. It's because there's no way a wooden door could withstand that much slamming. So it's the opportunities for grievous injury are ever present because we have a very intense 20-minute mime. It has such bad connotations.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it now.
We do it. We do a lot of the wall thing, and I tell you, boy, does the audience go nuts. No, it's not. It's backstage. You know how this happened? Michael Frayn went to see one of his plays, his serious plays that he wrote, and he happened to be backstage, and he was watching what was going on backstage, and it was so funny to him, and so hysterical, and so odd that he thought, well, this is the play I have to write. I have to show the world what goes on backstage, because no one would believe it. And as heightened as what we do is in the show, it absolutely has its roots in what occurs. The madness, when you can't talk, you'll be heard, and everyone still makes their entrances on time. The whole point is you do whatever you can to get the show on. Mm-hmm. It's all about getting the show on, because we all care. And the more you care and the more you want it, the more awful things can happen sometimes.
How important is the director, Christine, to you? Because an actor can't actually see. Well, it must be important.
Boy, have you asked the wrong person.
You don't follow the director?
That's not true. No, that's not true. Robert Sean, you caught me off guard. Am I turning red? Okay, here's the thing. I think you can count them on one hand. Okay, sorry, but it's kind of true. Am I right?
You're absolutely right.
Am I right? You count them on one hand.
So you still have about 2 fingers left.
I think you got 2 or 3 left over. Okay. So every once in a while, you'll find somebody who can, you just sort of have to approach it with the skills that they have. It might not be what you need or what you want, but you have to approach it with the skills that they have and try to sort of just go with what is. Now, in terms of 42nd Street, I mean, I have to credit Mark Bramble did an amazing job assembling 54, people and putting together an amazing production. This is a guy who was a writer who wrote the show, and then he was put in the position of directing it, and I think did an amazing job. Now, this is not something that is, if you also too, at each production that you're doing, you have to approach it for what you're doing. It's not like I'm doing, Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole other story, because I had an interesting experience of that when I was working at the Globe and doing Shakespeare for the first time with Paxton Whitehead. I was playing Beatrice to his Benedict for Much Ado About Nothing. And the director whose show remained unnamed, however, he was quite a remarkable actor, but he decided to direct this production. And the night before, now I had never done Shakespeare in my life, okay? And first of all, he lit it like it was, the Scottish play. I mean, it was all like candlelit, when it was supposed to be comedy. But anyway, I don't think he figured that part out. But the night before, opening night, and they're doing some kind of tech rehearsal, and we're playing outdoors, and it's starting to rain, and we're standing out there just with umbrellas over our heads, trying to say our lines, and we look out, and he's not there. The director's not there. The next day, he comes to work, and we're going to open that night. He goes, "Oh, could you believe those lights? What were they doing? Those lights, I just went home, And I kept saying to him, listen, can you please come back? Can you please come back? I need notes. I've never done Shakespeare before. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please come back? Oh, it'd be wonderful. You see, I don't know. To my point of like capitalizing on his abilities, well, I think they were more with acting. They weren't so much with directing. But I don't think I answered your question. Did I answer?
You did. And for those who don't know, the Scottish play, I can say this, is Macbeth. Actors can't say the word Macbeth because it means bad luck. But you didn't hear me. I'm not an actor.
Stand up, turn around 3 times, and spit over your shoulder.
See, they can't say the word. Well, let's go on with directors. Valerie, I mean, you can't
I had
see
a
yourself. Don't you need a
fabulous
director?
experience just recently with Lynn Meadow, who is, of course, started the whole Manhattan Theater Club, and she directed Tale of the Allergist's Wife, and she was wonderful with me, putting me in, because I never rehearsed with the actors that I then played with on stage. So Linda Lavin was in the show on a Sunday. We had Monday off, and I did a clandestine fitting. I hope the union doesn't. I'm sorry, Kate.
Don't tell me.
She's
I
on
wanna hear
Equity
it.
Council. And then Tuesday, I had a little short, you know, cue to cue, they call it. You don't do the whole show. You just do from the changes. And it's funny about Noises Off. My worst part, and I was on Tuesday night in the Broadway house. Some people paying $80 a ticket. So it puts a responsibility on you. I felt prepared in terms of knowing my lines, but it just was incredible. It was like I've been doing previews while we were in a run. But the worst part was the changes, but the physical clothing changes. Because I would do the scene, and I'd be perspiring, lipstick, the jewelry, dying, because they're very fast. And then I'd go on, and I'd suddenly be on stage, oh, I have to do a scene now, pouring sweat. So the worst thing that for me, getting into the show, was backstage. Those changes were were brutal. Now they're a cinch. It's
Come
so funny.
see the
I've been in it too
Backstage
much.
on stage.
That's what's so wonderful about your play.
What about
But directors,
costumes?
Oh, anyway, so I've had good luck with directors, but they're few and far between.
So
and
I'm
a lot of
right,
times,
right? I mean, it's
a lot of times
and
what
I don't
you have
mean
to
be
do
disrespectful
is
to directors. but
direct.
You'll
It's
never work
almost
again.
like you need to protect yourself.
That's it for me.
You need to, what they say, you have kind of translated into something
Yeah.
that works for you.
Yeah.
And then, or say, oh yes, I understand exactly. And directors will tell you that they give a note and say, I'd like you to do this. Yes, yes, that's wonderful, I've got it. And then it's the same. It's the same. So I mean, directors aren't the bad guy. It's
No,
just that
they're
you have to
not.
protect
No, yeah,
yourself from bad ones that get in positions where they're not cutting it. Kate?
I just wanted to say, though, the directors are interesting. I mean, I agree with you. There are very few directors that work. And one of the biggest things for me, and it's something that I've only really discovered in the last 5 years, is that I sometimes have to change the way I work with different people.
Yeah.
And, you know, you will also encounter directors who are wonderful directors who do a terrible job on a show. And you think, oh, I want to work with this director that I've always worked with so many times. He's so great, he's so great. Oh my God, this show is so terrible. and you know, and it's really funny. Like I had an experience doing a play, Arcadia, out at the Taper, and there the director of the show was someone who I'd never worked with before, and actually it was very odd because I at first I thought, oh my God, you know, this is really not going very well. But I loved this play so much. I had such a passion about this play and such a passion about this character. I found a way to make it work for me. And it ended up being one of the happiest experiences I've ever had, even with some actors who shall remain nameless, who, you know, we had a tough time. And I'm like really easy to work with, but it was tough. And yet, you know, you have the passion of doing the play. And, you know, every play that works, every musical that works, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. You just have to know that there's, out of your 90 plays that you do, there's going to be like 6 plays that are really going to totally work, acting, directing, costumes, lighting, you know, the actual play itself. And so you just keep trying. That's really what it's
That's it.
about.
You stay in
just
the game.
keep
Yeah.
trying. And that's really been my experience.
What's been your experience with directors, Robert?
Absolutely the same. There are very few good ones, and when they're good, they know how to balance. They have to do 89 very different things well. So the very few people who can do that. So working with designers and knowing sensing how each actor works and how each actor can be helped, which is different for all of us. It's rare. So yeah, you have to. I know how to direct myself, and I know how to, when I'm with someone I trust, let them do it. And
But you can't see yourself.
I know.
So don't you need the eyes of somebody else?
Yes,
to
for
look
the whole production. Yes, for my performance, there are times, as Christine said, you don't have a choice. You've got to.
You've got to do
Save
it.
yourself.
You know, and like you said, Richard Easton. I mean, I've had some of my favorite direction I've been given have been by friends who've come to see shows.
Yeah.
Which directors would be horrified to know, but yeah, and every now and then you work with someone who you completely trust, and rightfully so, and and it's great.
I'd like to raise that other question, that other word, audition.
Oh, yes.
Auditions.
I got a question from you.
How do you all feel about auditions? And do you
Peter.
still
Hate 'em? Let's start with Peter.
do you still have to audition for the job? Did you audition?
No.
How did you get it?
It was an
If
accident.
you looked a little less shocked.
You told me you weren't funny.
You know, that's like the person that comes up after the show. You've been in the business 25 years, and somebody comes up after the show, you were good.
I thought everybody had to audition. No?
No.
Christine, did you have to audition?
I did. I had to audition for 42nd Street. I had 2 auditions, and then I had to go to the director's house. I had to go to Mark's house. Yeah, but I I met the dog. My feeling, I know people laugh at this, but it's absolutely true. I think that the outfit you wear is very important to whether you're going to get the job. It sounds totally clear, right? Am I right?
Especially if you're a girl.
If you're a girl, it's the outfit. It's all the outfits you wear. Don't leave anything up to their imagination. And I had the most fabulous outfit for 42nd Street. And I'm telling you, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to get this job because of my outfit.
Never mind your singing.
Okay, so I sang it down. Yeah, but I'm telling you, it's like I walked in the door and there was like no one else. There was nobody else. And when I left the room, the first thing they said to me was I was about to leave. They said they were asking me about my coat. You see what I mean? So it was like it was my outfit. You know, they were asking me about anything else. Can I borrow the coat? That's what they wanted to know.
So would you say that the most important thing for auditions is what you wear?
Well, the other stuff has to be, I mean, obviously, you know, you prepare everything, but you gotta, yes, you seriously, you cannot leave anything up to their imagination. You have, however you perceive this character as who this character is, how they would dress. If you're going to be a construction worker in a play, you don't come dressed in a 3-piece suit.
Yes.
They're not going to imagine you in a hard hat. You gotta lay it out, go to wherever you gotta go, and you can have fun doing it. But it's I really think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You, Valerie?
What do you
The
do?
young lady asked me a question about.
I was thinking that's why I didn't get a lot of jobs. You know, I had completely the wrong attitude for like the first 10 years. Listen, if they don't get it, you know, it's tough. How'd you do? I didn't get it. And what you're saying is so right. Because, you know, if you've ever directed or you sat out in the casting, you know, it's like you're swamped. You know, you're just looking, you just have to, it's easier to say no than say yes, and when somebody comes in, you're delighted.
Yeah. You
want somebody to come in the door.
I mean, sitting on the other side of the table a few times, which I had, it is truly extraordinary. That is literally as the person walks in the door, they're either 75% there or not. And you know before they even sit down. It's like, okay, this is definitely a possibility. Let's hope this person can act.
And if they can't, maybe there's something we can do.
We can figure it out. But they want you to be great. I mean, and that's the hardest thing to remember sometimes. They want you to be as great as you possibly can be. And there are times where, and as hard as it is as an actor, and there's so much rejection. You have to know this. I mean, we all sit here and we're working and it's wonderful. But oh my God, I mean, it's mostly rejection. You know, it so happens that I'm playing this part. And I did not audition for this part because the director and who I'm virtually related to now, the 2 producers of the original production were my mother and my husband. What can I say? I was a shoo-in.
What about other jobs, though?
Oh, yes. I mean, I did I replaced, which was a fantastic experience, but I had a similar experience with Backstage hysterical changing of clothes. I replaced in the Beauty Queen of Lean Ann on Broadway.
Oh, my God.
A couple of years ago, and it was an extraordinary experience. And I also worked with the director the whole time, and not with anybody in the cast until. It's an extraordinary experience. But I auditioned for that twice, and. At first, I hadn't replaced in a play. I had replaced once before in a very short-lived play, but this I knew would go on for a while, and I just loved the play so much that I said, I will audition. Absolutely, I will audition for this. And I wanted very much to work with this director, who I very much admired. And I was happy to to do that.
What about that quiet young man?
Yes,
What
did
about
you have to audition for music now?
Come on, I yacked all through the first part of this thing. I was unstoppable. I did have to audition for The Music Man because there were skills involved that I obviously had never displayed, and to this day continue not to display. I had to sing Trouble, that song, You Got Trouble in River City, in its entirety, which was fun. I had to dance and sing and all that. But yes, but it's often, I mean, you also get, I mean, Kate's talking about a director who I've worked with 3 times, and her husband who I've worked for 3 times or twice or something. I mean, you do get, the times I find that I don't have to audition, usually it's because you know the person casting the play or directing the play, and they ask you to do it. But there is always going to be a time when you have to audition again. I mean,
Had you been taking singing and dancing?
No.
Just learned it on the stage, suddenly got out there.
No, Harold Hill is I'm very lucky in that it's one of the sort of actor-friendly, obviously, you know, like
Robert
we said before, you know, My Fair Lady in 1776, and there are certain musicals that were written more for actors than for singers. And luckily I have Rebecca Luker who does all the singing in the show, and then I just bark at everybody.
What advice can you give
About
auditioning?
I have 2 things. I auditioned for a movie last year when I was in Los Angeles, for a sort of a Jerry Maguire kind of sports agent, and I in a film that I still haven't seen, but I walked in the audition room and there were all these about 6 guys there, all like in T-shirts and jeans and sort of necklaces, and I was like, I thought, how odd. And I had a suit on, and they all had scripts, and I didn't even have. I mean, I was ready. I knew the scene word for word. I didn't even bring the script with me. I just walked in the room and said, let's go, let's do the scene. And I got the part, and I have to say I wasn't surprised, because I looked around and thought, why isn't anyone wearing a suit? I mean, we're all auditioning to play an agent, and that's their choice. But I would say this may be going. I guess I'll go out on a limb on this. I think for me, if I haven't memorized the scene, it's not really prepared yet.
That's true.
For me, I'm sure there are actors who may not feel that way and feel that they still need the page to. And there was also the argument that you want them to still think, oh, well, this isn't quite the performance yet, and that's what the paper will give them. But I think if I go in and it's not memorized, I haven't really prepared it the way it's not really done for me, and it's not the best I can do it.
Gee, that's very interesting, Robert.
Yes, a lot of people disagree.
When in the old days, that was like a no-no, except it's exactly what I did for Rhoda.
Really?
Yes, indeed. And I had props. I had a coat. I was washing the windows, and I brought a rag. And I was working in story theater, which isn't mime theater. It's imaginary objects. Were they there?
It's mime.
No, it isn't. No, it's not.
It's all mime to me.
It's not mime, and it's not sense memory. Viola Spolin, Paul Sills. It's a whole other thing. But I thought I don't want to ask that of them, so I took a rag and a car coat, and I used that, washing the window and Mary, get out of my apartment, etc. And I hadn't done that before because it was kind of bad form in the old days, Robert Sean, because you didn't want, the playwright and the director didn't want to see that you had memorized it, but Kate was telling me that wonderful thing about auditioning, wasn't it, that you learn it and then Neil Simon said to you, you got the job, now forget it, we'll start over.
Yeah, because what you need to do for the audition is a different thing that you need to do working on the play.
That's what Robert's
been my
talking
experience.
Yeah.
And today I think it is a good idea. Also, what you have to be aware of is that we're talking about who has it. You see a kid with talent or that. I think sometimes it is desire and willingness to get the door slammed and keep going. You know what I mean? I mean, past a certain point, that's not it. But I have had incredible audition. I once was asked to read with myself. I swear to God. And I did it. I was young. I said, well, how dare you say that to me? Oh, you're the one. You are the older sister. Yes, but you've always been jealous of me. I don't believe I did it. I don't believe I'm sharing it. But the guy said, no, the stage manager isn't here. Just read it with yourself. And I said, you mean you won't give me the lines? So I actually did it. And I don't think there was a job to get because this man was certified. But you will run into all kinds of audition situations. And another key in auditioning is to say to yourself, oh my God, there's 10 actors in this room. No, it's not between you and 300 or you and 1,000. It's between two. You and the one who gets it. So it cuts down your odds tremendously. It's a mind game, but it helps. You don't sit there seeing all these beautiful blondes and, thinner and better and all. And I just say to myself, okay, it could be me or the person who gets it. So I really have competition with only one person, not... Does that make sense? Yeah, it's a little trick. But you really prepare yourself and go in there, and they want you to be good. That's what casting is. Don't be in such fear. Oh, they hate me. They don't. They want you to be the one. And so you just keep at it until you are the one.
Is there enough rehearsal time now? I've heard that rehearsal time has been cut for Broadway.
Everything's been cut.
Everything's been cut. That there's less time. Have any of you experienced that, or you have had enough rehearsal time?
I think that's
You've all-
stock.
Okay.
Yes,
So
Yeah,
It
Broadway's
comes down
pretty-
to that, haven't you, that you just sort of fill whatever time you have?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
I
when
mean,
they're doing
usually-
technical.
Even
oh,
if it's
gosh.
2 weeks rehearsal, usually we're pretty ready. I mean, usually I think it just organically happens that you make each, by the time you're in tech, I don't think I've been in a production that you weren't sort of hungry for an audience by the time the audience came. And I've had 6 weeks rehearsal and I've had 2.
So it doesn't get better with more rehearsal, you're saying? Necessarily.
No,
You
there
need
comes,
the
there
audience.
comes a point when you need an audience.
You need the
Yeah.
audience.
That's right.
to take the next leap.
Peter, do you need the audience for something like Noors is Off? To hear them?
I'd hate to imagine what it would be like without them. It would be awful.
That's great.
You do. I mean, the thing that you don't need, the audience is great. And in some ways, the best performance is your first preview, especially in a comedy, because what you're playing is the script. What you're playing are the circumstances. What you're doing is you're working on the reality that exists in that scene or between the characters, and in the absence of laughs, in the absence of response, your attention is completely there in establishing that, and then. When the audience comes for the first time, it can be absolutely, it's absolutely shocking. And then what you have to be in guard against, technically, which nobody up here has to worry about, is not to then start playing for laughs. In other words, we have a moment in this thing where somebody drops their contact lenses, and the director aptly said, remember, you're looking for lenses, not looking for laughs. And that's... and that's the bottom line. But yes, with the audience, it's why you're there. I mean, it's this marvelous ancient ritual that we are all fortunate enough to participate in, and it wouldn't be the same without one.
And you, Valerie, do you find that the audience controls somewhat the comic expression, or you ignore when the laughs are coming?
When the laughs aren't coming. And you're used to them being there, the key is to go very deeper into your work. You just don't start playing out, oh God, flop sweat, this should get a laugh. No, you keep playing the reality. I get Tony Roberts and Michelle Lee and and Cheryl and Anil, we're a cast of 5. We just get more into the living room. I mean, you just get it, yes, and listen, and you just keep doing your work. And sometimes you have an audience who will be silent, or small little laughs. They're out there smiling maybe and you don't know it. And at the end they're on their feet cheering, screaming. And I can say this because my family is of this group. I'd go off stage. Michelle said, "Are they there?" I said, "Yeah. They're Canadians. They're polite and quiet, and they're not as loud as Americans." And they kind of nod and tell them the funny thing about that guy with Oklahoma. The audience members.
Oh yeah, I never get people get upset, when they don't laugh and scream, but I think that they're still enjoying it. And I'll never forget when I was doing Oklahoma in Oklahoma City, and some guy came backstage, and we thought, God, that was a bad audience. They never laughed at anything. This guy came, oh, it was the best time I ever had. It was all I could do to keep from laughing. So they told me right there. Sometimes just people don't think it's appropriate somehow.
Yeah, they're being
but they still enjoy
polite.
it immensely.
Sometimes they need permission to laugh.
That's true, too.
Depending
Exactly.
depending on how the show is structured.
Yep.
you know, there usually is some kind of, if the architecture of the play or the direction of it is really brilliant and it's a comedy, there will be an opportunity early on where the audience is given permission to laugh. And so, it's okay, it's funny, it's supposed to be funny. Because
that would happen in your play.
I mean, there's nothing funnier than Ibsen. No, Strindberg.
Wasn't that difficult for the audience at first?
Well, we were so surprised because when we started performing it, we had no idea what was going to happen. And actually, to be honest, our most laughing audience was our very first theater, was Sag Harbor at the Bay Street Theater. And I think partially is that, it's a totally different, it's not a proscenium house, it's a thrust stage and 200 seats. But by the time we got to Williamstown, they were howling. And then Boston, they were howling. We're like, okay, well, that's great. I mean, because that's what we wanted. But we thought, again, will they feel that they have the permission to laugh? It's Hedda Gabler, for God's sake.
Right.
And that's what they do. And, I feel like there's, again, that collaboration, that partnership with the audience, I feel like there's a way to let them know that it's fine to laugh. And then, of course, then we go into some real dark stuff, sort of inexorably throughout the show. But even in the very first act, it starts to, there are a few little things that happen that give them a signal of, what's going on with this girl? She's having a tough day. But it's great because what's so great about the writing and these characters is that we turn on a dime. I go from crying to making a huge joke within 3 seconds. And I get a huge laugh. Oh, God, I'll never get it again. It's all it's gone. Say goodbye to that. But, hopefully it'll return in a few days.
Tell me a little bit about your background, Valerie. Did you study acting in college?
Oh, no. It was here in New York. I studied with John Cassavetes, with Tony Menino, and Bill Hickey was a very young boy down at, I studied at Berghoff. And I studied with Mary Tarsai, who was wonderful. And then I had the great good fortune of getting involved with Second City and working on that. And that's when the comedy, I guess, started for me. But I was working on Broadway as a dancer-singer from the age of about, I was 18. Oh. Yeah, 19.
How did you get to that?
I auditioned for Little Abner, and I got into it. It had been the first play I'd ever seen.
Had you trained for it?
Oh, yes. I've been in ballet school since I'm 7, and I wanted to be a ballerina. You see before you, Isabel, a failed ballerina. That's what I really wanted. I saw Moira Shearer in the red shoes, and that's what I wanted to be.
But anyway, you studied dancing.
I studied dancing, and then I started taking singing lessons, and my first job was at Radio City Music Hall in the Corps de Ballet. In those days, it wasn't a Christmas show. It was a show this was the 50s, that we would do 5 shows a day in between the movie. The stage show, a movie, a stage show. And there was 32 girls on toe shoes. I was one of them. Not Rockettes, because the Rockettes were the stars. They were the last. There was usually a dog act and maybe a comedian. Oh, it was hilarious. And the choral staircases were filled with singers. It was great. That was 58, 57. So I've been in show business a long time. I went to college. I went to Hunter and to New School for Social Research, but just as courses. I didn't do the 4-year thing that my daughter is now doing. She's in theater in Los Angeles. So anyway, that was my background.
Classical education at Yale, and so you had
4 years of
but
college.
Before that.
No, I had no intention of being an actress until I was in my senior year of college because I came from a theater family. My father is Richard Burton, and my mother had been an actress, but no longer was an actress. And I was very much not going into the family business. Oh, what an appalling life. I hate all these people. Who are they? And, these actresses that I encountered in my life were, I really think actresses are very different today in a lot of ways. I mean, these actresses were, constantly, such personalities, bigger than life, the clothes, the jewels, And I just thought, oh my God, I'm in my, t-shirt and blue jeans. I do not belong with these people. But I love to act. I really enjoyed acting, and I always acted. Even when I was a history major at Brown, I still acted all the time. I couldn't stay away from the stage. And it was finally my history professor who said, you have a gift. Will you stop it already? You have this gift. you really have to give it a try. And I'm like, oh. And then I thought, well, I need to go to drama school because I didn't feel, I had a very weak voice. And I
Oh my God.
I know. It's changed. No.
Daddy.
No, it's like
the world.
no, it's everything's fine now. But it took a long time, to be honest. The biggest thing for me was vocal. I even when I came out of Yale, I still was. I would, project, and my voice would go up, and it would be strained. And it started to get better my third year at Yale, and then I was in a musical. I did not a very successful, but a very fun musical called Doonesbury on Broadway with Gary Peach. And we did it at the same time as the original Noises Off, I realized, because I was just looking at pictures the other day, and I was like, oh my God, there was a whole bunch of actors that they took pictures of. And I started studying singing very seriously, sang 8 shows a week. And right after that, I did a Shakespeare play, and it was like, I had areas in my voice that I had never known were there. And that really, then I've always sung ever since then. I've been in one other musical company, but I just love to sing. And I do a vocal warm-up every night before the show, Hedda Gabler. And I found that for me, I mean, certainly the 3 years at Yale were great, and wonderful acting teachers and wonderful classmates, but that was, and I was cast very quickly out of Yale. I auditioned for a play at the Circle in the Square. George C. Scott directed it, Present Laughter. And I played Daphne Stillington, the ingenue. And it was like I was perfect for the part. I was just perfect for it. I mean, I was a little ingenue, and I was just so, big round face. And I was like, great, everything was great. It was great. And my first show was a huge hit, and I thought, it's great. It's so great. Little did I know. I literally was not in another hit for like 10 years. I mean, it was sort of like,
it happens, yeah.
It was just like that, and that's the truth of it. Like I say, there are I remember when Robert Preston got his Theater World Achievement Award, he said, let's talk about the flops. Because that's what you remember, actually. You remember those more than the hits, So that was my little trajectory.
What do you do before you go on?
My vocal warm-up. That's it. Yeah.
What do you do before you go
do
on?
something?
Yeah. I'm in the musical, and I'm surrounded by the most beautiful 18 and 19-year-old dancers you've ever seen in your life. And I go out and warm up with them on stage every day. And the other day, Tyler, one of them said, you're the first, because I replaced in the show, he said, you're the first Harold Hill who ever came out and warmed up with us. And I thought, those more.
You're the youngest.
What were they thinking? So I do warm up with the dancers on stage, and then I do a vocal warm up as well, and I grab some coffee and run for the show.
Did somebody tell you that you had talent when you were starting out? You started very young, but was there somebody who said this is the path?
Not one particular person. As I said, when I was very young, I didn't really want to act. I liked the theater, but I liked the crew members. I was sort of attracted to the backstage people, and no, I auditioned. I understudied at the Public Theater when I was 14, and then understudied a couple times, and then I got this play with Cynthia Nixon called Sally's Gone.
Do you remember your flops? I mean, do they stand out as painful memories?
Oh,
or
sure.
just
Yeah. I've been blessed. It's been I've only been acting for 17 years or something, but I've been in a fair amount of well-received productions. But absolutely, and the bad reviews. There's nothing quite like going to the theater every night, giving a performance that you're pretty sure is bad, in a production that's bad. It's just the worst. It's the longest subway ride you're ever going to take at 7 o'clock. Yeah, I know that. I know it very well.
Christine, how do you prepare in the evening?
I actually don't warm up. I do not warm up at all. I mean, and somebody had said, somebody had once asked Ethel Merman, they said, Miss Merman, don't you warm up before the show? So what do you think the first number is for? So that's kind of the way I feel, What do you think the first number's for? That's kind of it. I know, I'm serious. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about me. I think, you know, I get ready when they call 5. That's when they call 5 minutes to 8. That's when I decide to put my makeup on. And
When do you
usually
enter?
you know, about 5 or 10 minutes after the overture. I think it's that, you know, that's how I can get the adrenaline rush. Maybe is if I'm going to be late.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I've never missed. I haven't missed it so far. So, but it's so nutty. But yeah,
Has it always been that way?
that I don't warm up and
Yeah.
get ready. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's always been that way. I think from, you know, 3rd grade. Your bus is leaving in 5 minutes. Get out of bed. That was kind of the way. I don't know. That's how that's just the way I've always operated.
Seems to
And
have
that's
worked.
not necessarily good. I
works.
would recommend that for everybody.
No,
but
you're just telling the
it
truth.
just kind of works for me.
What works for you, Peter? Do you
Prepare? Do I care?
No, so do you prepare? Do you prepare? Of course you care.
You know, I was just thinking of a story that, and I hope this is true, because I've told it because I love this story. It's about Jerry Orbach in 42nd Street. I heard it from some crew guys, and it may not be true, but Jerry Orbach apparently backstage when he was off during 42nd Street would play cards with the crew, as you know you often do, and like he was never missed an entrance. Never missed an entrance. The most professional, extraordinary guy in the world. One day, he missed the entrance, and the stage manager. I hope this is true. The stage manager came up. Joey, you're on. Oh yeah. How am I doing?
Oh my God!
What is that? Yeah. Well, we're still at a very, very, very tender stage right now. I'm busy pasting the lines on my arms, and, you know,
And
which
watching
only
the
us-
doors.
and all that physical stuff. It's a second preview. So what I will do is I will, you know, refresh my memory with in terms of the heads and tails of ins and outs of scenes, and just I like to be precise with the author's, you know, language, and I stretch and I vocalize a little bit because there's a lot of. I don't do as much physical stuff as some of the other cast members, but there are opportunities to get very hurt, you know, have a cup of coffee and think about, you know, and then by the time I go on, have as little in my mind as possible and just be available to.
Do you look at the audience at all before you go on?
No, but I am in this odd position of being in the audience for the first act.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
So, and that was very strange because it was nothing I could rehearse. For the entire
no, you
rehearsal
can't.
process,
just
we're in a room as big as this with a full-size set to practice the opening and closing of doors. But of course, my stage for the first act is the audience, and so depending on who's there, and I'll sit down next to somebody, and I'm still very much discovering that. But I really try not to let the size or the condition of the audience and affect what I'll be doing. I have confidence, as you were saying, Valerie, I have confidence that if I do my work and I trust the play and dig deeper in it, that, you know, something is going to emerge. And if nothing, at least I get the opportunity to spend that time with other extraordinary craftsmen and women actors that I love very much, and doing a play that I love very much. So either way, you can't lose.
Do audiences affect you?
You know, I guess they use, they, of course, I mean, they do, but I don't ask anything of them. I'm delighted when they show up, and I have a real deep affection for the audience, the people that have made the effort to come, and so it doesn't affect what I'm going to do on stage. I try not to, in terms of laughs, as you were saying, I never try to anticipate that. If my attention is not where it needs to be in that show with that person or that activity or whatever it is, then I'm not doing my job. Yeah. And everything else is a bonus. And I have tremendous affection for the people that come out, you know.
What's the worst thing that's happened? You've been in many other plays? I mean, you know, we hear stories about the prop not being there or somebody not showing up. Has anything like that happened to you?
Oh, yeah, so many things. I remember one. I mean, this is not the most spectacular. I mean, I've been out there. In fact, I was doing the musical version of another Ibsen play, A Doll's Life, based on A Doll's House, when the set never arrived. For my set, of course, for my room, where I was going to, you know, make love to Betsy Jocelyn, in a manner of speaking. I was a violinist, and so I improvised naturally and said something about the rent being late. And of course, it was the biggest laugh that we got in that show ever. And it was one of the biggest flops in the history of the show. And, you know, the more important thing about all this is, I think Woody Allen said in one of his movies, but 90% of life is showing up.
Yes.
You know, it's about showing up. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know nothing's going to happen if you don't show up. And in terms of those auditions, and it's the same thing. You can't take it personally, and you can't abandon your own instincts and your own sense of self in hopes that someone, either a director or a casting director, someone is going to say, "You're the greatest kid." Because it'll never happen. They're too busy worried about themselves, and too busy worried about what to do with the show. And the most bizarre things happen. You know, I remember I've actually heard once from which never happens, is years after an audition that I thought I had really been good in, the guy that I was reading across it was an actor they'd hired to read with, he came up to me and told me what happened after I left the room. And see how everybody leans in?
What did he say?
You see how everybody leans in? Because this is the stuff you never hear. Because you're constantly lied to. And you expect that. Because no one's really interested in you or your well-being. They're really interested in their own well-being. And because it's a tough business and nobody knows what the answer is anyway. So why be mean if you don't know what you're thinking about anyway? But I had given this audition, and I really, you know, I was prepared up and down the way. It was a very powerful kind of great part, and I felt like I knocked it out of the park. There were a couple of the producers were crying, and I was thinking, wow, I think I did all right. And so I left the room, and I never heard another word about it. And then 10 years later, I ran into the guy that was reading across. He said, you know, I've always wanted to run into you again. I got to tell you what happened after you left the room. And I said, oh, my God, I'd love to know what happened. He said, well, you were awesome, man. We were like this. And I wasn't crazy. There were people crying. We were all thinking, you know, one of the producers, well, we found our guy. We found our guy. This is great. Oh, they're all like this. And the director looks up and says, his nose is too big. And then it went from like, we found our guy. He's right. You're right, yeah. So, see, it's insane. It's all insane. So you can't, it's about showing up, no matter what. No matter what. And, you know, if nobody's perfect. What you hope is you have the great play, and it's true, when it's a great show, when it works, I've done so many more flops than hits. But getting back to things that happened on opening night, the real thing, I replaced a guy when he was out of town in the original production of Real Thing in America. Mike Nichols was directing, and Mike was amazing. I had 4 hours of rehearsal, and it was an amazing part. I'd been in the original production of Grease, Company of Grease, which was a hit, and then I'd started in the Broadway revival in the 70s of Hair, which was a flop, but I left to do Grease. And Doll's Life was a flop. Corn is Green was a flop. And so I thought, I didn't care. I was working. Yeah. I have a job. So what? It's a great play. I'm working. All right, what am I doing next week? I didn't mind. I never felt more successful and never felt richer or happier. Well, maybe not happier, but I was working. Yeah, I was working. It was the greatest. But in the Real Thing, I had 4 hours of rehearsal. So it was all very raw before I made my first preview on Broadway. And it was a turntable revolve that, you know, spun out into the audience. So I'm thinking, all right, okay, I'm doing my thing, what I do before I go on, and just think about bang, boom, boom, you know, I'm thinking, all right. And all of a sudden I hear these enormous explosions. And this was in the 80s, when there was all sorts of, you know, threats and things. And And so I go and think, all right, okay, we've been hit, man. There's not going to be anybody out there. I can't believe there's no sirens. There's nobody can never get me. And all of a sudden, the turntable starts to move.
Oh.
I'm going, holy. And the lights come up. And I realize that I got to do the scene. And I just remember looking out in the audience.
They're there.
And for some miraculous reason, I remembered my line. And I got to the scene, and I totally forgot what had happened. By the time I finished the scene, I'd completely forgot. Next night, same thing happens.
No.
I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. Nobody's running. Nobody's doing anything. I mean, it's explosions in my head. And I get out, and finally I realize Jason Robards is next door doing You Can't Take It With You. And he goes down to the basement, and he has these explosions. So you never know. The thing is, no matter how long you're doing it, you never know what's going to hit you when. There's always a new way to be surprised.
Oh.
Anybody else been surprised?
Just 3 weeks ago, I am in the scene with Michelle. She comes in. She's this gorgeously dressed person, and I'm schlumping around in a terrible robe. I'm unhappy. It's the tale of the Allergist wife. In the beginning, she's just a miserable, self-hating ball of neuroses. And we have this wonderful scene by the bar, and she's got this fabulous boucle-looking beige and purple, not beige and brown scarf over her shoulder, and her jewelry and red nails, and she's talking, and I walk over, and I see, we're talking about my daughters. I have 2 daughters, Joan and Rochelle is the name, and I'll show you their picture. And in Roach, this big, is walking up my co-star and my friend's beautiful chest, okay? And it is the color of the thing, and I looked, I couldn't believe it. And so we kept going on with the scene, and it's going up, and it's going like this. It's being a big scene of itself. It's carrying on and walking slowly toward her face. I thought, if she sees this. So I walk over to her, and I'm talking, and I say, yes, Rochelle, and there are 2 daughters.
I can't believe her name
I'll
was
show you
Rochelle.
Yeah, I know. Joan and Rochelle. And I just slapped the hell out of this thing. I'm sure it hit the back. I just slapped it, and Michelle looks at me like this, and we carried on with the scene. She said, I knew something was happening, but the rest of the scene, I was like this. I had such a horrible aversion to them, and it was big, but I got it. I think he hit the back wall.
Everybody wants to get into show business.
But I don't think the audience saw him. They thought I went crazy. I don't know what, but I did slap it off of her.
I do have a story. Opening night of Current Events at the Manhattan Theater Club about a year ago. It was opening night, and in the beginning of Act 2, I had this long monologue describing basically what happened in the mysteries, unlocking the mysteries of what happened in Act 1. And it was one of those kind of stages where the audience is on the same level. So there's the stage, and it just goes right out to the house, and the chairs are all right there. And all of a sudden, I'm looking out, and I'm, this serious monologue. I'm going on and on and on about this. And all of a sudden, I look out in the audience, and I see people going like this. They're lifting their feet up, and you hear them going. And I look over, and there's a little mouse that's on stage with me. Oh! He was like he'd been something, like they were trying to trap him, you know what I mean, with poison or whatever. Yeah, so he was kind of like, oh, where am I? I thought, what am I going to do? It's opening night, and I'm giving this serious monologue, and no one is listening to me because they're all worried about the mouse that's going to like run up their leg, you know. So I stopped the show.
Yes.
I said, we have to acknowledge the mouse here because I've never worked with a mouse before.
Children and animals.
None of my acknowledge the mouse. But somehow, we acknowledged the mouse, and I don't know what, I think I can't remember what happened. I think he scurried off somewhere. He heard his name called, so he scurried off behind somewhere, and then we went on with the show, so they were able to pay attention. But,
I know, there's things
so there's no business.
See, you will be working with animals, roaches.
If you were going to put your daughter on the stage, what would you say to them? What bit of advice would you give to someone who wants to go on the stage?
Oh, I have that.
Every one of you.
Yeah. Follow your heart. My daughter is doing that. And she just told me, senior class in high school, Mom, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm going to go in the theater. And so I said, prepare yourself. and she's in school.
Right. Now she wants to go on the stage.
Yes.
What happens?
Oh my God.
Where did she start?
Well, my daughter is going to be an actress.
I know.
She's
Let's
3
go
and a half.
back.
She's 3 and a half, and I know this already. She's a born actress. It's shocking. Anyway,
She was born at a luncheon at the American Theatre Wing.
I just, again, follow your heart. I mean, at the end of the day, if you need to try, you've got to try. Give it a try. But I do say, get some training. I have to
You
be
have
honest.
to
I really do
Absolutely.
think that really helps you persevere. I really
What
do.
would you advise, Robert?
I really don't know. I would say I really, really hope you're talented. And get. I mean, there are a lot of. You mentioned the Old Globe. The Old Globe, Williamstown. There are great places for young actors to apprentice,
Yes.
literally, and it's that's a great thing to do. I think
Yeah.
to seek out theaters that have actors around to apprentice.
Christine, would you advise?
Well, I think that I'm a mother of 3 children, and I think one of the greatest challenges as a parent is to recognize the type of flower that has come into your house. That some of them are cactuses and don't require as much water and need lots of sun, and some of them are more delicate and need different kind, need to be in the shade more. So it's sort of being able to recognize the flower that you have and let them unfold as they are. So if that is their proclivity and that is their desire, then they're going to find that out. You need to encourage that, but also inject reality. That like you said, they need to get training. That's important. They have to be able to have the technique, to carry through all the rejection and other things. But it's just sort of being able to know what they want and be able to encourage that.
But
I think that's what my parents did for me.
The training and studying is important.
Yeah. I
Whatever
think so.
that is, whether it's a
But
drama
I think
school or whether it's
encouragement helps
piecemeal.
too. I think that as parents, if you can recognize in your children that that this is something that they have a desire for and that they have a talent for, and that and even if they don't have a talent for it, you know what? They're going to find that out anyway, aren't they? It's not your job to tell them. So it's really sort of what's in their heart, being able to encourage and inject reality into that. What the practical steps are that they need to take, like being in school and things like that.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time. We could have gone on. Thank you so much for joining us here to talk about the performing art in the seminar on working in the theater that is coming to you from the Graduate Center of City University. And we thank you very much. That was good. Thank you.